Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Socialist Telly and Squawk Talk special, responding to the government's report out today, which has, well, remarkably, if not shockingly, claimed that there is no, little institutional racism in the UK, and that the, black and ethnic minority people in this country are not disadvantaged in the way that they are treated and in their life chances. So got a stellar panel with me today to talk about this. We've got Andrea Gilbert from Labour Black Socialists. We've got the estimable Dan Lewis, and very shortly we'll be joined by Dr. Kailash Chand of the British Medical Association and a well-known health campaigner. And we'll look a little bit at what he's already said about that once he joins us. Andrea, give us your initial thoughts on this. On the developments today. You said before the program to me that it wasn't shocking.
Yeah, it wasn't shocking. Like, I knew that they was basically not going to, investigate what the causes for racism and institutional racism within the country. I had a feeling that they were literally just going to blame Black Caribbean people, and we're going to run with it, to be honest, as that's what was coming out before they were trying to place the blame on them. So it doesn't really surprise me that they've come out with this, to be honest. It's just obviously, trying to sweep it under the carpet, trying to make out that, people are exaggerating. I think for me, what was the killer blow was the education side of things, because obviously where I've been campaigning to decolonize the curriculum in Wandsworth, the pushback we was getting on that was that people didn't understand the meaning of the word, and that it was just all too confusing and very vague. And the fact that that people have basically just said that, that they found that decolonizing isn't going to actually do anything, it's just really, really annoyed me. And it's basically setting us back years as well. It just feels like we're going back to the 1950s rather than moving forward, to be honest. And we're basically in a dangerous situation here, where it's going to invite, the racist trolls that have been trolling pages, it's going to invite them to be, empowered by what's come out from this. So I'm not shocked, but it's really annoying and it's frustrating, and I just feel like they're just pushing us back to the 1950s.
Dan, tell us your first take on it.
So when I was about 14, I was on the bus on the way home from school, and these guys got on and they started singing "Ain't No Black in the Union Jack." My mum reported it to the police, and they said there was nothing they could do. When I was about 8 or 9, the park just 2 minutes down the road from my house had no P's, no N's written on the sign. And the kids were shouting stuff that clearly is in relation to racism, or just is racist to me. And the council said, "Oh, well, there's nothing we can do about kids being kids." More recently in life, I was at an election count, and a UKIP candidate assaulted me and became aggressive towards me and tried to have a fight with me in the count. I got questioned by the police for about an hour, taking statements off me and everything. And after waiting weeks and weeks, they basically said there wasn't enough evidence, even though there were several statements. There was video camera footage of him doing anything illegal. Racism, is a hate crime. It's illegal, and also physically assaulting me. There wasn't enough evidence of that. Now I can continue these stories because, and I have a privilege in that I'm very light skinned. Yeah, there's a privilege there that I recognize, and these are my experiences. Andrea, I can't imagine as a Black woman in England how much more you experience compared to me. And I give you my full solidarity, and I will continue to fight against these things. But like, if me, as someone who's experiencing less, has experienced just that much, I can tell you in just a few instances where the authorities, the police, whatever it might be, don't do anything or say they're unable to do anything. When someone comes along and tells me that the racist conservative government are going to do a report into finding out whether they are racist or not, it's, you know, you might as well, what was his name, Paul Goldburn or whatever, the Britain First guy, you might as well have just got him to do it, man, because for real, I have no time to actually respect what's written in this report. Like, racist man tells you he's not racist. Do you know what I mean? It's that's where I'm at with it, bro.
Yes, I mean, one of the things that leaped out at me, and I can't remember the exact wording that they used, but I mean, you know, there's two aspects. I mean, the one that you know, and I'm not obviously not speaking from a point of view of personal experience on this, but the you know, the experience of Black people and Asian people today and other ethnic minorities. I mean, we've just seen the Gypsy Roma travelers week before last were getting targeted specifically by a law that would essentially make their lifestyle illegal. I mean, what, you know, how much more racist do you have to get and say that that's not disadvantaging or discriminating? And yet, you know, so there's the experience now, but there was also this thing where the report said that you essentially have to put a more positive spin on slavery and look at it from the point of view of the cultural transformation of Black people. And I mean, what, you know, and I'm not Black, and yet that gobsmacked me, you know.
Like, they were like, you know, I don't know what positive spin they're trying to find on you know, slavery and stuff like that. I don't know what they were trying to aim out of getting that. Maybe some controversy, because this is what this report is. It's just controversial crap, to be honest. And you know, the feelings that I'm getting around from like many members and people outside of the party as well is that it's just another thing that they're gonna, you know, sweep away, and they're not going to use the recommendations, even though they've come with these recommendations, but they still won't use it. They've just basically done it because it's come out of the Black Lives Matter movement, from not movement, but it's come out from the Black Lives Matter stuff from last year, and they've basically just, they've basically done it then just to say that they've done something, when in fact they're not going to do anything, and it's just another report. It's the same thing, different year, isn't it? It's just not going to change. It's not going to, you know, impact anything. It's just basically empowered the racist trolls, and here we are.
It reminds me a bit of like Apple when they brought out one of their new phones, right? And bear with me on this. I know it's I sound like I'm reaching it, but they brought out a phone and it had signal problems, that it lost signal sometimes, and they turned around and they said, what was it? They said, oh, people aren't holding the iPhone at the right angle on their face when they're speaking to people. And that's what it reminds me of. It's like, it's you, it's not us, it's you. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't mess up. That's not our problem. And that's literally what's going on here. Like, and that point about slavery, you know, I live, as many of you know, I live in Merseyside, and we have the Slavery Museum here. Like, I invite every single, I know I shouldn't really invite Tories to Liverpool, but on this occasion, I think people will allow me. But I invite every single one of those Tory ministers and advisors, all of them, to come to that museum and tell me we should start looking lightly. I'll warn off the crowds. I'll make sure they won't get protested. If they just come to that museum, just to walk around with the people who work there and actually learn and see the history that this country was so influential in creating that trade. It's unbelievable. There's some brilliant historians in this city as well, that can tell you about the sites where Black children were put on boxes and sold in front of their parents while their parents were put on ships to go elsewhere. It's sad, it's scary, it's you hope we would never go back there. And when you say, Andrea, you know, we're going back to the 50s, I do get scared that we're going back even further and further. There's, you know, just intrinsic in the country, we have to recognize what's gone on. And we're not saying that just because this country has that history that it's a bad country, By recognizing your faults, you become a greater human being. And that's the same for a nation. By recognizing the faults in our history. That's my history. I'm British. I was born in England. I am British. I have English grandparents as well as Mauritian grandparents. And that heritage, that English heritage, I'm proud of what I want to be proud of in England. And there's stuff, or in Britain, but there's stuff that, you know, we're not proud of, or I'm not proud of. And by recognizing that, it helps me become a better person. And it also helps me prevent my daughter and younger generations from having to face those horrible realities, in my opinion. So by putting a smile on it does not make the world better place. By recognizing it and making sure it doesn't happen again, that's how you make the world a better place. And this report, well, it's just doing that, isn't it? It's just putting a smiley sticker on it, really.
Yeah, it's not really you know, it's not learning from the past, is it? It's not acknowledging the mistakes of the past. It's just basically, like you said, Dan, it's basically just putting a sticker over it and hoping that people forget it and move on and stuff like that. But you know, it's just not going to happen, is it? And at the end of the day, like, until we get rid of this government, I don't think we're ever going to solve this issue, because, you know, it's them that's preventing us from moving forward.
There was one line that jumped out at me on the report that was saying, you know, that it would be false to say that the UK hadn't made any progress on the issue of race discrimination, etc. And I think, you know, it almost strikes, you know, I'm well into my 50s, and I grew up with, you know, programs about how shocking it would be to have a black neighbor next door and stuff as a comedy on the telly. You know, I mean, that was the level of things. Pointing back to say that we're not like that anymore isn't saying much, is it, really? You know, if you and some people probably are, but, you know, at least we don't have TV programs making a joke about it now. But you know, it almost seems like it's just pointing to say, well, you know, however bad it is, it's not as bad as it was then, and therefore be grateful, you know. And it's shocking. I mean, Kailash, we've got Dr. Kailash Chand has just joined us. Welcome. You were having a few issues with the tech to begin with. Can you hear us all right, mate?
Yes, Steve. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm just going to read out your tweet from earlier, if I can get that up on the screen. Bear with me 1 second. Here we go. This should work with a bit of luck. There we are. That's better. The 264-page report on race equalities makes 24 recommendations. It's deeply disappointing. It denies institutional racism, which has been accepted in countless reports. Once again, a lost opportunity. Kailash, tell us why you tweeted that, and what disappointed you, or deeply disappointed you, to be accurate, in terms of what the report has said.
Steve, to start with, I think it was never an independent report anyway. If you look at the views of the people who are on this committee, right from Swell to even the 10 Downing Street who commissioned it, they have very clearly said that structural racism is a perception. So if you give these people to have this kind of inquiry or report, what kind of report you're going to get? And a person like me who knows, I think, a lot more about, say, racism in NHS. I have worked in NHS, as you know, for almost 40 years. And I have come to one conclusion, and I have seen ups and downs. I've worked at all levels, right from junior doctors to the chair of a primary care trust. And as you know, I was deputy chair of the BMA also for several years. In my view, NHS is one of those organizations where we are not all equal. People talk about some progress has been made, and I think I have my concerns about that progress also. Simon Stevens, the chief executive of NHS, when he took over NHS, he gave an undertaking that he recognizes that there is discrimination and there is racism in NHS, and he will sort it out. And he definitely, to some extent, produced a body known as WRES, Work Race Equality. So that's the body is working for last 4 years, I think. And if I tell you the report of WRES, which is a body actually done by NHS England, if in 2016, if X amount of racism or discrimination or public appointment or so-called NHS senior managers or leadership appointments are concerned, it has gone down. It's not gone up. So in a way, things are literally, in my view, much worse than as they were. Now, people say there's no structural racism, Steve. Now, you tell me, is there any one chief constable in the whole country from ethnic minorities? Answer is no. Is anybody in Justice Department, any Supreme Court justice, is anybody from BAM community? Answer is no. There are almost 16 sports bodies I know, and you know how much ethnic communities, particularly in football, rugby, running, is all our ethnic communities. None of those sports body has its chair or chief executive from ethnic communities. So if this is not a structural racism, then I don't know what is. And we know recently also what COVID has done to all BAM community, whether it is health professional, whether it is social care workers, the maximum impact been on BAM communities with this. And if this is not a structural racism, I don't know what is.
Andrea, what would you say to that?
I guess like I can only talk from my experiences. Like I'm a union rep at the moment, and you know, out of 16 cases, I've only had 4 white members. Do you know what I mean? The rest of them are Black, Asian, and other minorities that I'm having to fight for currently. And you know, it stems from women, you know, disabled people, you know, mental health. There's so many issues that are coming up in the workplace, and they're not getting supported there. You know, they're more likely to get in trouble as well. They're either called aggressive or not, you know, not approachable. So it's, you know, it's always going to be there, and I do believe that it is, you know, it isn't going to go away anywhere soon. So, you know, I guess that, you know, we're going to continue to see more of these reviews. We're going to continue to see more of these reports, and we're going to continue to see nothing being done about it, to be honest. That's just my point of view on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
This is quite a comment. Alice Savina has just dropped in. As someone said in the article, so racism is not the problem, but talking about racism is. I mean, that seems to be a large part of the thrust of the official conclusions today, doesn't it?
One of the things I think that is one of the biggest problems, and you know, obviously I have some interest in this as a member of the NUJ, but like the media is a massive problem. Like the amount of times I've had conversations with people, and it sounds like repeated lines from the Daily Mail or the Scum, and it's just that those rhetorics that are put out. I remember as a kid kind of being indoctrinated, I suppose, by the headlines that I saw, that it was the Eastern Europeans taking our jobs, and I didn't know what jobs these were. I was a kid, but I saw these headlines, you know, because those newspapers, they're everywhere. When you go in the shop, they're right there. When you go in the cafe, they're on the table. And as a kid, you know, you go in the cafe, you read the paper, and they're literally feeding these lines into young people about different people who are different, people who are other, constantly. And that is where a big problem lies. And I think there has to be, you know, do a report. Number 10 can do a report on whatever they want to. That's calm, innit? Just, you know, go do your reports, man. But really what we need to be doing is breaking down the media, democratizing the media, and making sure that we keep pushing the right people into positions where they can have platforms to speak truth to power, sense to the people, and basically mash up the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like literally get out there and say, this is what's going on. Because I feel that until our experiences are spoken about and people have conversations, and BLM, like the BLM protest last year, I think the difference between the BLM protest last year and in 2016 is that in 2016 there was a lot of anger, and there was a lot of rivalry in a way. It felt like it was them and us in 2016. There was a lot more anger. And in last year, because of COVID, because of the pandemic, people spent a lot more time talking, and that changed so many people's views. Like the amount of people around me that have even just had small conversations with me, and I didn't think that they ever wanted to or needed to, but they've stopped and they've had a conversation with me, And it's like, oh, do you know what? That had an impact. People having conversations, people educating themselves. I definitely recommend, like, everyone read the book. Is it Why I'm Not Talking to White People About Race? I think that's what it's called. Yeah, that book. Read that book. Like, the title is obviously there to make you go, what? But when you read it, you'll get it. Read that, and that definitely will help people. And that's where it is. It's in the breakdown of the media. It's about education and conversations. We need to talk. And I know I've been talking for a hot minute here, so I just want to round up on this point as well. On that point of talking, when Tommy Robinson came to Bootle, we did not go there to shout at those people that came to hear him speak. We did not go to shout, because they are our neighbors. They are fellow humans, and I would hope one day they could be comrades, because at the end of the day, everyone's looking for an answer to what's going on in the world right now, especially with this government. And those people that came to hear Tommy speak, that genuinely thought that he might have the answers to try and fix some of the problems they have in their communities, we went and had conversations with them. I shook hands with a lot of them. I even hugged one of them, and we planned to meet in the pub. But I tell you what happened. Just as we were starting to make some ground with these people, because Tommy has people who turn up with him that are there to cause trouble, right? And then there's the people who are genuinely just there to listen. And just as we were starting to make ground and have these conversations with people, the police put in a section whatever order, and they said, if you're here for the Tommy event, you got to be here. But if you're not, if you're here to oppose Tommy, you got to be over the road over there. And it was the police that started threatening to arrest people that had come to oppose Tommy, and they split the crowds up, and they created the problem. So it's the media. We need to fix the media. We need to definitely work on education. We need to start having more conversations, and we need to abolish the police. I'll end that bit on there, man.
Well, let me just interject before we go back to the panel. But one of the things that really struck me, I'll share this this page. I mean, this is the BBC's first report on the report first article on the report coming out, which was the BBC recently, as even more than I think they normally do, been acting as just a kind of apologists and straight reporting of government propaganda as fact, etc. But this is the article that they put out on this, and the first thing I noticed when the report came out was howls of anger and anguish from the people of ethnic minorities, and yet this is the BBC. So just have a look at this page, and this is positive, 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 positive. You have to go all the way down to here, which is 3 or 4 screens down, and how many people not many people read that far often, and before you get a negative comment on the thing, and and then it starts to come in, and it's this kind of this both sides in, and this pitching of the Tories version of events as if that's the true one, and then other people get, if they're lucky, to make a comment on it. I mean, that to me is the core of the issue. You expect the Daily Mail and rags like that to to take a right-wing perspective on things, but the BBC now is run by Tories and is essentially giving the Tory viewpoint on all of this.
Definitely. And if you're a parent, like right now, and a parent of so if you're a non-white parent and your child's going out into this world and you see that report, it's just laughable. Like the stuff that kids are having to see and put up with, just even on the internet. Like, I can post anything and someone will just jump on. There will be someone there who's just ready to jump on you with some racist abuse. Like, it is, I expect to get racism thrown at me in every single environment I step into. I expect to see that's how I live my life in Britain, right? I'm not saying I dislike Britain. I'm not saying that I hate everyone or I expect everyone to be racist, but I do expect to experience racism every time I step outside of my house or do something online. That's where we're at. That just in Britain, you know what I mean? And it's laughable, this report, that they're gonna sit there and say, nah, it's not that bad. We're actually better than everyone else. It's just unacceptable, really.
Yeah, and just like, you know, only today as well, there's you know, students from Pimlico School who are currently protesting about racism that's happening there towards black students and Muslim students, particularly the girls who with their hijabs. They're trying to make them wear single coloured hijab at the schools. So, you know, it's just laughable what they're coming out with, to be honest. It's not reality. They don't even engage with residents, do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, like for them to say that there's no racism and you know that it's rigged and stuff, it's just absolutely laughable. And the fact that it's funded by taxpayers as well, it's, you know, it's just a joke, to be honest, that is coming from them.
Exactly.
I think, Steve, in my view, time has come when we should all boycott all these kind of inquiries, because whatever information you want, whatever evidence you want, whatever visible thing about racism is, that's very obvious. Right, take it right from the Macpherson inquiry to the Windrush one. Everybody has come to those conclusions that there's a widespread institutional racism, and we just do a lip service. All these important people, when the crisis comes in, they come up with these kind of goody words, and eventually some sort of inquiry, then into green grass, and we never get anywhere. The truth is, again, I come back to my NHS where I have my experiences. 1/4 of NHS workforce is from ethnic communities. And as far as doctors are concerned, 44% of doctors are again from ethnic communities. And now look at with leadership. 96 trusts in the country, Steve, don't have even a single non-executive director or chair or medical director in 96 trusts, not even one. The overall leadership with the ethnic communities NHS is anything around 5 to 6%. So that tells you a lot, that unless you improve this leadership and bring the leadership on, this racism or this so-called discrimination in NHS will never decrease. It will never end. It will keep on increasing and growing.
It's well, I can't argue with a word of that, really.
So the time is for action, not for targets.
Yes, it doesn't seem to matter what the topic is. If it is a government inquiry about something, it's a way of kicking it into the long grass for long enough until the outrage dies down, and then make some kind of whitewash to gloss over the reality and pretend everything's all right again. Because for the small number of people that are in the government, that are running things directly to the government, etc., everything is all right. But the rest of us, they're only interested in fooling enough of us to keep themselves in power.
I definitely think there's opportunity here. Like, we're at a point where it's so blatant what's going on. Like I said, we step out of our houses and we expect racism. It's at that point. And this report, we weren't surprised by how it's come out. I definitely think, and I agree, Kailash, about boycotting these reports, but also boycotting that mainstream media that's providing us with this racism that is feeding the minds of working class people with racist ideas. We boycott them, and we really do start to let's learn from our ancestors. Let's learn from the history, the past. Let's start to take control of things like the Black Panthers. I'm genuinely on that vibe right now, where it's like, let's for us, by us. Let's create our own media. And I don't just mean people of color. I mean people who do not want to accept this capitalist imperialist structure that is being forced upon us. I definitely believe that we need to consciously stop consuming these capitalist products and policies and start living in a world, or creating a world that we can control, have better control of protecting our brothers and sisters around us, in my opinion, and non-binary friends.
I agree with Gran. I do feel like we do need to start boycotting these things and following the footpaths of the Black Panthers in the UK as well. There's lessons to be learned from their organising as well, especially in terms of other groups infiltrating the work that they were doing. So just learning from those things and not making those mistakes again. But they did wonderful things. Working with other groups, it wasn't just a Black only issue. They involved everybody, and everybody was fighting for the same thing, which was the racism, imperialism, and all the other things that were going on during those times. So I do feel like that needs to be coming back, and we need to just be fighting against these people. Otherwise, you know, like I said, it's not going to change anything. But we need to get up out there and organise and continue organising like we have been. There's been amazing stuff that's been going on. So this isn't the end of anything. It's just the same stuff, different days. You know what I mean? But at the same time, let's not lose motivation over this. Let's go back to the drawing board, come back bigger, better and stronger, and get out there and protest and continue protesting.
Kailash, comment on that. Kailash, can you hear? I think we might have lost Kailash's sound, but
yeah.
Sorry about that. I want to. I mean, we've had a bash at the media, but you know, it is nice every once in a while to be able to not have a bash at the media. And the Independent's coverage of this was interesting. If I can get this to work, bear with me.
Yeah, while you're loading that up, Steve, definitely like we've got to give credit to the independent media. Obviously, give credit to Socialist Telly, giving platforms to the people. Them, trust me. Big up Socialist. I can't wait for Socialist FM so I can spit some bars. You get? No, I'm joking.
Well, it needs to happen, man.
I want to do my poetry in it, but no, really, like, you know, there is a lot of independent media that is doing it really well, especially a lot of left wing or even just like proper investigative journalism that's out there, and we need to promote them. Like, not just keep creating more, obviously keep creating more, but also promote the platforms that are there, and really make sure that they're being used and consumed. So when you do, you know, like, one of the things I would say to anyone watching this is, when you're online and you see an article from BBC or you see it from the Independent, even though they're not the worst of what you see online, think about if there's another independent media organization that might have also done an article on that same subject and share their content. Because I can guarantee you, independent media, they sign up. You'll know Steve doing Squawk Box, obviously. You know, you sign up to, is it Impress, where you basically can't lie in what you're doing, and you get held to account. Not like the Daily Mail, they don't get held to account. Independent media gets held to account, and when they're reporting on things, it's truth that they're speaking. So it's so much better. So make that effort to look for them, add them to your favorites, but don't go to the BBC News app first. Go to the Squawk Box website.
Yes, I can't get it to come up on the screen, but I just wanted to give a nod to the Independent, which I'm not always a big fan of, but I mean, their initial headlines on this, when they published their first article on this 2 years ago, was landmark government race report labelled divisive polemic as it rejects claim of institutional racism in Britain. So it was, you know, they at least touched on a little bit of the fact that there was an angry reaction to this report. But then another report that they published about 40 minutes ago, another article, sorry, government's race report branding an insult which glorifies the slave trade. So they are at least giving some kind of a flavour of the reaction to that in a much more prominent way than most of the regs have so far. I mean, in terms of the regulation, etc., as well. I mean, yes, we've got Impress, which is the only Leveson compliant regulator. And then you've got IPSO, which is the one that's actually run by the big newspapers for themselves, and you know, has, I mean, one of the most shocking things, and again, it bears directly on the, you know, on the current topic, was one where a journalist for the right-wing Murdoch publication that living in Liverpool, I don't even like to name, had, you know, talked about the Muslim problem. You know, Britain's Muslim problem is that Muslim people, you know, by existing are a problem that we've got to deal with. And IPSO decided that he hadn't, you know, been inciting or speaking in a racist fashion when he made that comment. So, you know, you've got proper regulation, and then you have, you know, the people refereeing themselves, essentially, you know, always giving themselves the benefit of the doubt. So I would recommend to people, you know, to go with the publications that are properly regulated. There are quite a few now. Tend to be the smaller ones, because the big ones owned by billionaires don't want to get properly regulated. Yeah, you know, proper complaints process, all that kind of stuff, and get some kind of a decent take on it. But you know, I think things like Socialist Telly are an opportunity where, you know, if people will support it and give it the, you know, the views and the shares and the support that it needs, then you know, we have an opportunity to actually let people have their own voice, whether that's black people with the Labour Black Socialist program that we have on regularly, working class people who come on and get to have their own say about topics is really important. But, you know, I mean, this report, you know, to anybody looking on for, you know, on it from, you know, as a non-participant in its creation, almost, it just looks crazy. But what can people do? Is there any, you know, what positive steps that people can take? We did see one comment come in just now where there was talking about having a, let's see if I can find it again. AWJM. There's been a great boom in left-wing media online, but definitely room for an anti-racism channel to highlight issues daily, education. So, you know, how's that as an idea, and what other things could people do to actually try and have a positive impact on the problem?
I think organising, you know what I mean? You know, organising about the issues that concern all of these communities. So obviously, you know, workplace organising, community organising, you know, organising with the Gypsy Roma traveller community, bringing their issues up into the public as well, because they seem to be excluded out of everything. You know, engaging with the community as well, finding out what the issues are within that community, just putting yourself in positions where you can find out what's actually going on and what the actual concerns and issues are in your local area. Just making sure that you know who to be in touch with, just being available to these people to hear their voices and hear what's going on. That's what I would say. And just you know, attending things as well, and sharing ideas and communicating with other groups as well, not just, you know, fighting for yourself. You've got to engage with others to make this bigger and better. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, I'll add on to that. Oh, sorry, go on, Steve.
No, go ahead, mate. I'm just going to read out a comment, but we'll do that after you've finished.
Sure. Just to add on to what Andrew is saying is, like, you know, once when you're organizing, one of the first steps that you do, you know, you map your community and everything. You look at who's out there, you know who to speak to, and there's certain people, you know, you go into communities and it's like I know if I went down to Wandsworth and I said to Andrea, where's the food bank? She go, boom. If I said to her, where's the best chicken and chips? She go, boom. You know what I mean? Like, but she knows the people is the point I'm saying, really. The people who you can speak to get things done, and who's involved in what. And you've mapped your community, you know what's going on. Then you know how you can start having influence, who has influence, and how you can actually start to build influence. And ways in which you can like build influence on the matters that we're talking about is, I mentioned before, education. You know, thinking about, okay, what kind of books have they got in the schools around here? You know, what's on the curriculum in the schools around here? What are they teaching our kids? And then trying to get those books into the schools. Books often do like little days where you can like, they do book sales and stuff, or they have little fairs in the school hall in the winter to raise money. Get yourself a stall in it and put below the black books on there. Make sure that you're also supporting and funding, and I'm using black in the political sense of just covering everyone at the moment, because I think there's a big discussion about how we refer to ourselves, and I'm happy to be open to that right now. But for real, like, you know, make sure that you're supporting black and brown business owners, and, you know, if you're an employer, think about who you're employing. Like right now, I'm applying for a few jobs, and it's funny. Like, I literally think to myself, oh, they're white, they could do with me. You know what I mean? You go on their website and you see like 20 white people in the team. This is our team. Woo! That's not Colgate. That's just white faces. And you're like, boom, yeah. And that's the situation. But if I run that company, I'd be like, raw. I was a community organizer for the Labour Party. We were the most diverse team within the whole of the Labour Party. And that's because the people who were doing the employing made an effort to think about, okay, how do we reach outside of the normal white circles that the Labour Party is, you know, goes to for their staff. And it wasn't, you know, these people, they did amazing things, the community organizers. So they definitely got the right people for the job. Then they went further afield. So there's just some of the things that you can do. Also, it's about like the type of people that you have on platforms. A lot of the people that are going to be watching this are involved in their local Labour Party or kind of different political or Labour movement kind of groups. Think about who you're platforming, you know, like have you got a wide range of people speaking at your events? You don't have to have loads, but if your only option is to have 3 speakers, then, you know, try and make sure that it's 3 women and 2 of them are black women or brown women. You know what I mean? Add that in with disability and gender and sexuality, all those things, people's identities. Think about that. But when we're talking specifically about racism, obviously I'm saying get people of color into positions where they can be seen, so that our young people are seeing the difference. Because generation left right now, you know, your millennials, your Gen Z, all of that right now, they have the biggest shift in attitudes in a whole generation, in a long time, in regards to how they view the world and their views on things like racism and homophobia, all of that. And their views is literally because of the experiences that, like, above my generation, I suppose, had, and how diverse the country has started to become, or that Britain has become. And I think if we continue to do that, if we do keep pushing, then we can get to a point where we say, look, institutional racism is no longer in existence. But at the moment, as Kailash mentioned, you know, football or sports, NHS, the police, all these organizations, when you look at the senior people, you do not see black and brown people. So the more we get black and brown people involved in different things, their literature, their businesses being present within our day-to-day lives for everyone, then we will start to see those changes.
Very good. I'll just read this comment out that came in from John Lyle Summers. The key word in this is institutional. The establishment has just absolved itself of all responsibility for obvious racism evident at so many levels of our country. Well, I say our, but it's only when the elite need us that it suddenly becomes ours. It's theirs, really. By the way, how can they explain the lack of diversity in, for example, the police forces? The report writers must have devised this report in a locked room without windows. I mean, it's hard to disagree with much of that, I think, but, you know, certainly from my point of view, is this our country or theirs? And you know, is it only theirs because we sit back and let him treat it like it is? Andrew, give us your first thoughts on that.
Well, the way they're acting is theirs, isn't it? It's not about anybody else. It's about them. You know, you just got to look at who owns the land. Do you know what I mean? It's not us that owns the land, it's them. You know, that's why they don't build more social homes for homeless people. That's why more people are still on the streets. That's why they're trying to deport non-EU migrants. Do you know what I mean? Like, it literally, you know, it's about them. It's what they want to push out to everybody, isn't it? It's not about caring about us. If they cared about us, they would come with reports that actually reflect what's going on, rather than their fantasy world, to be honest. And it's, you know, at this stage, I just feel like they're trolling us. I just feel like they know what's going on. They know that there is an issue, but because all of us are now coming out and protesting about it, they want to absolve themselves from it all and make out that it's just us coming out of nowhere and making it up, and you know, pointing fingers at them because it's them that are supposed to be making the changes, when in fact they're not bothered about it. They never have been bothered about it, and they're happy to stay in the status quo, which is doing nothing about it or changing it. So yeah, that's my point of view on it. They're always going to absolve themselves, and then they're always going to find you know, ethnic minorities that are prepared to do that work for them, as we have seen.
And you know, I mean, just bring what you said there brings to mind for me the you know, some of the scenes that we saw in the Grenfell Tower inquiry. You know, an event that overwhelmingly affected people from ethnic minorities. And when, you know, we eventually got the report on it, we saw essentially that, you know, what seemed to be a very obvious attempt to put the blame on the fire services, who would, you know, put life and limb on the line to get in there and rescue as many people as they could. And that, you know, there was an obvious move, and in the media as well, to try to make people blame the fire services for any bad decisions they made under difficult circumstances, as opposed to the whole structural thing that, you know, allowed flammable, you know, materials to be used to turn a building into a potential candle. You know, it's insane. I mean, it's another. Well, I'll quickly put this one on, just because it made me smile. Great independent left media such as Double Down News, the Canary, Navarra Media, Real Politics, Socialist Think Tank, Evolved Politics, Novara Media, Red Pepper, Source, Tribune magazine. So that's quite a list. Bloody Squawk Box isn't on it. And Socialist Telly isn't on it. Pull your finger out there, Paul. Pull your finger out there, Paul Smith. But then he also put this in. And let's talk about this for a minute. Before we can do anything about this government, we need to remove Keir Starmer as leader of the Labour Party and then purge the right wing from the party. Let's talk for a minute about Labour's response in this. I mean, there have been a couple of Labour MPs on radio, etc., today hitting this report quite hard. But, you know, we've also seen at the same time Labour spokespeople coming out and absolving the police of their actions in Bristol, etc. So, you know, what does Labour need to do to actually be in opposition?
Well, they need to oppose the government for a start. That would absolutely be wonderful, to be honest. You know, oppose them, oppose what's going on. Like today, we have seen Marsha come out and go against the report and stuff like that. But yeah, we haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything from anyone else, to be honest. But yeah, oppose it would be nice. Actually support groups that are fighting these things as well. You know, that would be fantastic. And yeah, just to be a party of opposition would make my life a lot more easier, to be honest.
Yes, Kailash, I've muted you. Sorry, mate. I'll just tell Kailash I've muted you. I'll unmute you, mate, when you want to come in. But we were getting a tappy kind of typing noise coming through, and it seems to have been coming through your mic. So I'm not sure what that was. But sorry for sticking you on mute. Sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw Keir's comments today, and he said in the end, what we need is a race equality act. Like, calm in it, go on, because you know we needed a report. Like, let me just say a few names for you: Mazay Mohammed, Mark Duggan, Stephen Lawrence. You know, these names. Every 71 names of Grenfell. You know, reports don't bring back lives. Equality acts or race equality acts don't end racism, right? Tony Blair tried this whole thing when he was in power, when he was in number 10 even, where it was like basically they tried to make people feel dumb for being racist. And like I get that rhetoric, but let's be honest, if someone has a view, they have a genuine, heartfelt view. Hold on a minute. These people are taking my jobs because they've been fed that lie for so long. And then you say to them, you're dumb. Then you're just going to seclude those people from society. And that's why we have such a divided society, divide and rule. You see where I'm going with this? Anyway, yes. So like Keir isn't really helping in that instance. You know, he's definitely made some mistakes over the last year in his leadership time as leader, and he now's a perfect opportunity to repent and say, you know what, yeah, I stand with you. I stand with you, right? We need action, not words, not acts. We need action, and we need to start actually making a difference. The first thing he could do, number one, it's a really easy one. So I heard that sometimes members of the Lotto team watching on this show. So if you're watching, yeah, the first thing you can do is tell the government to suck out, man. Get rid of them. Oppose the government, yeah? The next thing you can do is start to actually challenge the racism. Say it. Say on TV. Say Boris is a racist, yeah? The Tories are racist. The government, the Conservatives, is an institutionally racist organization. There is no question about it. Start standing with us and saying these things. Saying them loud and saying them clear. Because until Keir starts saying these things, until we hear all of the shadow cabinet saying these things, I don't care about the parliamentary, my right honourable friend. If I was an MP, yeah, you know the reason why I'm probably not I couldn't do that stuff is because I would be in parliament. I'd be like, yeah, you right honourable racist, wagwan. Do you know what I mean? I would say it to them. I would get kicked out of the chamber every day. I cannot deal with that. There are people who make mistakes, and there are people who we can educate, and then there are Tory MPs. And in my opinion, that's what Labour Party need to be doing. They need to be coming out hard. They need to be coming out strong. At a time when our nation is so divided, we need that. We need that from the Labour Party. That's what we need.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you on the parliamentary language thing. You know, the whole concept that some language is parliamentary and some isn't, etc., is to my mind designed to kind of disenfranchise a lot of people from politics and make them uninterested, because you know it's all about my honourable friend this, and you know with the speaker, with the Mr. Speaker and stuff. If you know, to my mind, a lot more people would be engaged in politics if people went in there with an opinion and actually said what they think, even if that means the occasional swear word, or you know, saying somebody's talking bollocks or whatever, would be a lot healthier for our political situation. I'm going to bring Kailash in, but I just want to point out that Paul Smith's repented. You mentioned repentance before, so he said, "Sorry, I forgot the socialist telly." You're forgiven, Paul. Just don't do it again. Kailash, I'll take you off mute there, and hopefully while you're speaking, we won't get that noise coming through.
Yes, I think there is some problem with the sound anyway, Steve. Fine, that's okay. We have to deal with it. The truth is, person like me who've been campaigning against racism and discrimination for ages, and to be honest, I have never sought positive discrimination. I have always said we want fairness. And the problem with this particular report is they're denying it even, that there is any structural racism. So if there is no structural racism, what it means, implication is that we don't have to do anything. And we have seen the kind of disparities before COVID and after COVID. You will see how things will get much worse, whether it's housing, whether it's education, whether it's NHS. It's a real, huge mess. And I think they are washing their hands by denying it. There is no structural racism whatsoever. And you tell me, keep your hand on the heart and ask anybody, at least all the panelists here, how much we personally have faced in our progression of our careers, progression of whatever has gone on in our lives, day-to-day lives. I think I've been lucky as well. I've achieved a lot in this particular system. But going through, when I was a trainee, quite often I have seen people would come and say, I don't want to be seen by this brown doctor. I want to see by a white doctor. Just think how my whole psyche got really hurt. How do you then progress in that system? And then when you report that, nothing is ever done. There are, Steve, loads of, we are now short of GPs in the country. And would you believe it? To be a GP, you have to do a certain test. And in that test, the percentage of passing a white and a brown is so huge. Not only people coming from the subcontinent, even people who are qualifying in this country, there's a disparity there as well. So now if these disparities are there and you say there is no structural racism, I'll keep on saying that. What? Then what are you? You're not going to make any progress whatsoever. We know there's a lot of evidence. So many reports have come. Everybody has confirmed it. People who are unbiased, that until unless we treat this cancer, it's a cancer of the society, nothing is ever going to move. And my plea again would to be all our friends is, let's ask for fairness. Let's ask for openness. Let's ask media that we're not asking anything which is not due to us. What we're asking is which is fair. And that's the really thing is, I think any campaign, any mission got to work on this, that we're seeking our rights. We're not seeking anything which we don't deserve.
Andrew, we're getting towards the end of our hour, but I'll give you the last word on this if you want. And but if anybody wants to jump in and interrupt, feel free. We'll let the last 5 minutes or so flow pretty freely.
Yeah, no, I'll just say that I just think that, you know, we all stick together. You know, we all unify, we all work together to organise, you know, to keep it out there that racism is pretty much alive in the UK. And to expose it, continue exposing it. That's all we can do. You know, like Dan was saying earlier, boycott these right-wing wags and stuff. You know, this is what we've got to do. Educate yourself. There's stuff out there for you to go and read. You know, there's so much going on at the moment in black structures and stuff. So, you know, the information's out there for you to go and look at and to make your own decisions on it and to fight for it as well. I just feel that you know, we don't give up. We got the protest, the Kill the Bill protest on the weekend that's coming up all over the place. So join these types of events, join these type of groups, you know, get involved in these things. You know, we can end this at the end of the day, and you know, we just got to continue fighting with each other and making sure that we keep exposing this disgraceful government for its failures in tackling racism, and also for the Labour Party, like I said, to oppose it and to challenge it, and to, you know, expose Boris's party for what it is, a racist party. It doesn't want to change. You know, you just got to look at Rees-Mogg, man, that wants to keep us in the Victorian time. This guy is literally the Victorian puppet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got to look at the types of people that are in this party, and at the end of the day, you know, they're stuck in the dark ages. So at the end of the day, we've got to keep pushing, we've got to keep fighting, we've got to keep organizing. And the most important thing is that all groups, all marginalized groups, come together and organize against this disgraceful government. That's what we need to do. Yes, we do have our own individual issues. We do, and we have to accept that. We do have our own issues, but at the same time, together, collectively, we can get this government out, and we can, you know, end racism. And that's the goal at the end of the day.
Yes, I think it's a brilliant point. I mean, I think, you know, the reality is that anything decent that's been achieved in this country has come as a result of people organising and demanding change. It doesn't get handed down from on high as a, you know, a boon or a gift from those in power. It has to be dragged out of them kicking and screaming, largely by organised action. And you know, whether that's the NHS, whether that's civil rights, whether it's the entire labour movement. And I think that's the key thing, you know, is that this is it's a class issue as well. You know, it's not just a race issue, you know, and the reality, I think, is that if everybody realizes that, you know, the white bus driver has got far more in common with, you know, the Afro-Caribbean, supermarket worker, for an example, or welder or whatever, than he has with Jacob Rees-Mogg. You know, you might share a skin color, but that's about all you've got in common. You know, and in the end, whatever our ethnic background is, you know, we all face the same, you know, largely the same problems. They vary a bit, but you know, we're all essentially facing a bunch of powerful people who want to keep things as they are when the rest of us need change, and that's what matters the most, you know. And this issue is, you know, probably the one of the major cases in point that we could possibly be talking about. I do thank you all for coming on at short notice to talk about this. It did seem like something that needed to be addressed and needed to be discussed. And I hope everybody who's watched it has been, as I enjoyed watching, got angry about watching, and determined to do something else to actually try and change the situation. And we'll be back with our regular socialist telly schedule in due course. But I do thank you all for joining us, and thank you for taking your time to be with us. Take care.
See you later.